showing my music, worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide, take it worldwide.
Worldwide, baby. Let's go.
Doing some big moves with your music. I
Thank
know
you.
you've teamed up with MTV Africa Music Award winner. Could you tell us more about that and how it came about?
Right, that's on Stanley Ebai. So we have a record together called Of Course. And big shout out to Stanley. He's out in Cameroon right now. And preparing for his festival too. So I hope all goes well with that. And of course, it came about when he was in Toronto for a concert. And after I met him at the concert, one of my
So today on the broadcast, we have an artist from Toronto with a unique name. It's CHXXX.
that's right.
How do you pronounce your name for the viewers out there?
It's pronounced Chucks.
Chucks.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
AKA Triple X.
Yeah, like extension, triple X extension. Yes, rest in peace. So, how did your journey from Lagos to Toronto shape the artist that you are today?
Tremendously. Like that's my sound right now is Afrobeat.
Yeah.
So, that's the music I listened to growing up. It
Okay.
influences our way of life back there. Everywhere you go, you hear Afrobeat. So it
Yeah.
was really important to me, like as an artist, to really capture the sounds of my homeland, especially as
Yeah.
somebody being here in Canada as an African in diaspora. So it definitely has
So, you have a project called Afro-Nadia?
Afro-Nadia.
Afro-Nadia.
That's right.
Afro-Nadia, you have described as a sonic diary. What inspired the title and how does it reflect your newcomer experience?
Right. So Afro-Nadia, as I explained, I'm an African here in Canada.
Yeah.
So I try to blend those two experiences, African in Canada, Canada, Afro-Nadia. That's how I came up with that word. And I wanted to use that to really embody just the experience of the African immigrant or any immigrant in general, actually, when you're leaving your homeland to come to a new country, a foreign country, just to
Yeah.
find a better way for your family. You're out there trying to hustle, trying to make that money. And through all that, you go through the journeys where some people make it, some people don't. And then, when you make it, you want to start a family, you want to settle down, all those challenges, right? Like I kind of like chronicle all that through the
Yeah.
album, relationships. Sometimes you get into relationships that you're afraid might not last, like temporary love, like maybe based on your parents' approval and things like that. So, talking about different things like that, all the different song titles, they take you through this journey from the come up to where you make it and then, kind of like leave you hanging to
Yeah.
continue.
So, Afrobeats has exploded globally in recent years. How do you feel you're adding to the conversation from your base here in Toronto?
I'm giving them a new sound. So I'm giving you a new angle. I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop as well.
Yeah,
And I feel like here in Toronto, we're very multicultural. So we have a lot of influence, not only like North America, but also from the Caribbean and now from Africa as well. So I look at that as that's really shapes our individual experience here. And as a part of that story in Afrobeats, that also needs to be told. Like, how is Afrobeats being accepted overseas in Canada and the UK and America? How do people respond to this music when it's played? Do people understand it? How do people interpret it? And how do the local artists themselves in those different regions produce like that kind of music? So I feel like that's something that's yet to be really put on a global scale. We've touched a little bit on it here and there, like with some of the UK hip hop coming out that has like Afro influence, and even a lot of the dancehall stuff that is now coming out that has like trap influence. I feel like
yeah,
everything merges. So we really need to show, a lot of the stuff we're doing here, Afro beats, like how has hip hop influenced it? How has R&B influenced it? How has dancehall even influenced it? And how can we put our own spin on that music? So that's what I'm doing.
that's interesting. Did you hear about the conversation Buju Banton had on Drink Champs?
Right, right. And that was very concerning, right? Because the way I
Yeah,
look at it, this music should be a tool to unite us, we shouldn't use the music to separate us. So coming up in Nigeria, a lot of the music we listened to before Afrobeat was even popular was called raga, right? So, and that was really influenced heavily by a lot of dancehall music. If you listen to some Afrobeats artists even today, like Ruga, Wizkid, you can hear a lot of like dancehall influence in their cadence, in the way they sing, in the way they pronounce the words. So it's not something to like shy away from. I feel like it's something to embrace and celebrate. And even vice versa. How can I make a dancehall sounding record using my Afro slang on it? That's what I'm doing now, right? Like we have a record coming out called Yeba, and I do just that. Like I cooked up this beat. I'm a producer, by the way, so I made this beat that kind of gives you like a dancehall vibe. But then on it, we're doing like the African flow and African rhythms on it, and it sounds next level.
So Afro-Nadia is packed with rhythm, soul, and storytelling. What was the creative process like when you were building the songs?
I've been working on it for almost a year, and I just kind of took my time. It was a gradual process. I really wanted to make sure this is an album I'm proud of. This is an album that I can listen to over the years. So, I made sure it was very musical, like the musicality was all the way up. The sounds are really diverse as well. I didn't want to make two songs that sounded the same on this project. Also, the subject matter, I try to make sure I had a good balance, songs for the guys, songs for the ladies, songs for myself. So it was a really like fun process, really going through all those things that I wanted to hear in this project and checking them off, right? Like, okay, I got a nice melodic record. Okay, I have a big feature now with Stanley Ebai from Cameroon. Okay, like all the little things I wanted to do to make this whole album. And then finally did the last song, Paper, which is actually the first song on the album. That was the last song for me to record. And yeah, that was a fun record to putting together. And eventually the album was done, but I felt like it was missing a little bit of a musical element to it. So I invited a saxophone player into the studio to do some recording. And he played the sax on three songs. So Paper, African Gotta Hustle, and Dance for Me, which I wasn't planning to have him on Dance for Me. He just heard the record and he's like, I gotta lay something down in it. Now there's a lot of saxophone now all over the album, which sounds crazy because that's one of my favorite instruments. And then I also did the engineering on the album, and I worked with Lucy Liu on the mastering. So when we had the final product, we went to the studio, we polished the sound to make sure everything sounded, top.
You're doing some big moves with your music. I
Thank
know
you.
you've teamed up with MTV Africa Music Award winner. Could you tell us more about that and how it came about?
Right, that's on Stanley Ebai. So we have a record together called Of Course. And big shout out to Stanley. He's out in Cameroon right now. And preparing for his festival too. So I hope all goes well with that. And of course, it came about when he was in Toronto for a concert. And after I met him at the concert, one of my guys introduced me to him. And then the next day we had dinner actually at Roots Chris. And after dinner, I just mentioned during dinner, like, oh, I had a studio that, we can vibe out at if you don't got much to do after this dinner. So
Yeah.
yeah, he actually took me up on it and pulled out to the studio. And yeah, I was just kind of like, showing him some beats because I was just like happy to have him in the studio. So we pulled up a beat and he kind of got on the mic and just did some crazy stuff, man. Like he laid out this track in say like 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Like he just kept saying, okay, run me back, run me back. And before I knew it, he had a whole verse, had a chorus. And I was like, that's crazy just watching that. And he's like, okay, I got a flight to catch in 3 hours. I'm gonna take a nap. Let me see what you can do on the record. And I was like, hell, say word. So that was literally it. He went, took his nap, he woke up, I had my verse done, and we played that thing all the way like to the airport, repeat. And that's how we knew we had a banger.
So you also have saxophonist Simon Jefferson on the album. How important was it for you to include live instrumentation on the project?
It wasn't that important, but I did want to do that for sure. Because I mean, I play a lot of instruments here as well. But with the sax, Simon, aka the real G, that's his name on IG. He's
Yeah.
amazing, and I met him on the streets. Actually, it was random. We're just jamming, playing my music, and we had like a crowd form around us. And he was going home, and he saw what was going on, and he literally dropped his saxophone and started setting it up. He had it all packed up, and he pulled it out of
Yeah.
the bag and started jamming with us right down the street. And ever since then, I was like, this guy's a real dude. I like the way we vibe. I would love to collaborate. So when this album came about, yeah, I had him in mind on the album. There was just one song I wanted to get him on. That was the Paper song. I thought it would add a nice touch to it. But then I kept listening to African Gotta Hustle. I felt he was missing something as well.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of albums where the tracks flow into each other. So I thought having the saxophone on the first track and the second track of the album, he plays a solo at the end and he kind of goes into the second track. That would be a nice way to tie it all together, right? So
Yeah.
that was my idea. And then I invited him to the studio to lay that down. Then, and I mean, on some of the other songs, we actually had saxophone on them, not the real one that we had just synthesized saxophones on them, right? So it's crazy because there's like three other songs that have the synth sax, and then three songs that have the real sax. And the last song, like I mentioned, we're in the studio, and I had a listening party for my album, just running through the tracks, and he heard that song and was like, let me get on it right here. So we literally had like everyone shh, quiet, quiet. And he got on
Yeah.
it right there at the party and did it. It was amazing.
You sound very musically inclined. What do you feel is needed in the music scene today?
I feel we need integrity. I feel we need honesty. And I feel we need like a union for the artists. You know, we need people to fight and take it up for the artists because everyone's looking out for the companies, the corporation, but there's nobody really looking out for the artist's best interest, right? So artists are getting bled dry just to create and just to market the music, and it's very unfortunate because if you have no music, then you're not even gonna have anything to reach up, right? So why don't we actually, treat the artist right and make sure it's worth their while to create this music. So I'll say there's just we need that support. We need the support from the fans. We need awareness in terms of the role like everyone plays in this ecosystem of music, and I guess just we need to also raise the importance of music, and by doing by the only way to do that, I feel, is by improving the quality of the music itself and improving the value that people get from the music. So that's what I really try to do with my music. Make it different, make it unique. I can make it clean, so it's more accessible, things like that, right?
Who would you consider to be the top five greatest artists of all time?
Top five greatest artists of all time. Okay, so I'll say that's Chucks, 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 and
Yeah.
nah, I was joking. That was more
Well,
like a deep
funny, I
shout
heard
out.
that Method Man made that kind of comment when he was asked about the best rapper, and he mentioned Inspector that, Inspector that, Inspector that.
Right, right. We got that from Dave Chappelle where it's like Dylon, Dylon, Dylon. That's where he got that from. But yeah, I'll say top five to be serious. In no order, because I'm not gonna rank people in an order, but I'll say
Yeah,
Michael Jackson, Bob Marley, Tupac. There's this guy called Dr. Dre. He's pretty good at producing music.
yeah,
I'll throw him there. I'll throw in there's this producer called Kashif.
yeah,
Passed away and rest in peace. He was a great musician. He pioneered the use of the synthesizer actually. So in music production back then, they used to have a lot of live instruments playing in the studio and it cost a lot to produce this music, right? But Kashif pioneered the use of the synthesizer to kind of improve the cost of producing records. So instead of hiring
yeah,
20 musicians into the studio, you can play 20 instruments on one instrument. And the record labels hated that because the budget for making an album now went from maybe 400,000 to 50,000, something like that, right? So all that
big
extra money
difference.
that people were pocketing, they couldn't
Yeah,
justify it, right? And I'll say big up to Kashif, hats off for him for really pushing the use of that, going against the grain, and also teaching the artists how to be independent in here. So I'll say Kashif will be my number five.
okay. So being from Toronto, what's your thoughts on the music scene with artists such as Drake and The Weeknd, the Party Next Door?
Right. My thoughts in terms of what? Like their music or
Yeah, like
like what am I
how it's impacted the world in the last 10 years, 5, 10 years?
like the impact of their music on the world?
Yeah, coming from Toronto.
I'll say it just helped put Toronto on the map. I don't know about Party Next Door worldwide, but like
Yeah,
when I was in Nigeria, a lot of people were talking about Drake, that's for sure. And I'll say like, yeah, his music has put Toronto on the map. The Weekend, I don't really, I don't know if he reps Toronto that hard per se as Drake reps it
yeah.
that hard. You know what I mean? So I'll say like Drake definitely did put Toronto on the map and let people know about our city and let people want to come in to see it. So, even though I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the music like that, but I do show respect to that for sure. And you can't forget about Justin Bieber, man. Justin Bieber
Of
as the
course,
OG, you know what I mean? He did a lot. So he was actually one of the first Beautiful Canada.
that's true. Through Usher, saw his talent early.
There you go. Yeah. So I'll say like those guys definitely have done a lot, like in terms of just bearing the flag and
Yeah,
putting the city's name out there. But in terms of the music in the city, I want to see more of an impact, in terms of like just the grassroots, like people on the come up. Like
yeah,
sure, there's a hope now for artists, but hope doesn't feed, the dream. So it's like we need more infrastructure, we need more support for even people like yourself as well, right? Like these artists need to be on your platform. They need to check in with y'all. So it's like that's the only way to really grow our scene internally.
yeah.
We
That's
don't we're
true.
not benefiting if they're on like podcasts on the States and Drink Champs and Bobby, Millie Bobby or whatever, right? Like we need homegrown talent supporting homegrown and just building our
Yeah,
stuff and keeping it in here. And that's the only way we'll really shine.
and that's what we try to do worldwide because we interview artists from north of the border and south of the border and cover events all over North America. And that way, artists from other cities could see artists from other cities, and that's all, help get exposure for the artists.
What's up? That's it, man. It's just about unity, the community. There's no community without unity, right?
That's
We just
true.
gotta keep going. And like me, I'm a huge fan of collaboration. Like even just talking about my album, you can hear all the different like collaborations that I tapped into to
Yeah.
make it a reality.
So, what other dream collaborations do you have?
Hmm. Dream collaboration. That's interesting.
Who would mesh
I
with,
think
who do you think would mesh with your style?
wow, that's a tough one. Because I never really think like this, man. I just be cooking,
Yeah, yeah.
cooking and working on what I'm working on now. I think I might have to go to sleep and have a dream actually and come back and get back to you.
Okay, because I've asked artists before, and then it manifested and actually happened, some of their dream collaborations. So because I like asking that question because you put it
That's
out
a
there.
good one for sure.
Yeah,
For me personally, I guess my dream collaboration is anyone who's happy to work with me, anyone
yeah,
who's, and it doesn't matter the size of the artist, big or small. Like I love working with artists that are on the come up. So if anything, my dream collaboration is actually to work with artists and bring them up and let them tap into what I have going on. And, that's how I look at it. It's not always just,
yeah.
so that's it. I'll say my dream collaboration is to work with undiscovered talent and nobody's heard of, and through that collaboration, we'll blow them up, and
So,
it takes over the world. That's a dream collaboration.
okay. So you've also done performances in the city and other places. Could you tell us how those experiences were?
Oh no, great! Honestly, I love performing. I have a tour coming up that I'll be announcing actually this week. So we're
Yeah,
going to, the whole Ontario, Waterloo, well, London, then up Montreal, Ottawa, back here in Toronto on the 19th July, and that'll be the Afro-Nadia show. Just love performing, love traveling, love presenting my music to new crowds, new audiences.
yeah,
Done some shows in Nigeria as well. That was a very unique, just seeing how people receive the music. And I feel like my music's very unique, where I'm cultivating my own fan base,
yeah,
and it's like if you know me and you know the sound, you get it, and you kind of have to like really dig into it to get it. It's not gonna sound like other songs that you've heard or your idea of other songs. It's gonna sound like my idea of the songs, right? So
yeah,
it's either you get it or you don't. I love it that way because the people that listen to my music and tap in, they become solid listeners and they follow me throughout the whole ride. So yeah, I'll say I just have to keep finding those people going around the world and showing my music, worldwide.
yeah. Worldwide, take it worldwide.
Worldwide, baby. Let's go.
So, is there any lasting words you want to tell our viewers where you could get your music and where they can see you perform live?
Definitely.
One last thing. What is it? What is one thing that you want the people to know about you? that they may not know?
That they may not know. I
Yeah,
think that my life's a pretty open book, right? Everyone knows that I love music.
yeah.
I'll say that's a huge thing. I love God. That's huge too as well. So I want people to know that.
Okay. So best of luck with your project. And
Thank you.
thanks for coming on the platform.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, honestly.
No
I'm looking
problem.
forward to this chat. We're gonna take it
Yeah.
worldwide. Let's keep going. All the best with your
Yeah.
platform too as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching, and check out our hundreds of other videos on this channel, Worldwide Entertainment TV Media, and our sister channel, Worldwide Entertainment TV Network.